That's funny. All right. Yes, go ahead.
That Christy's not here, so you'll have to assign to somebody else the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, sure. Let's see. Am I on?
Your mic's off.
David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Welcome back. We are out of our closed session. It's now a little after 5:30, so we're going to reconvene, and I'm going to call this to order. Thank you for all who are here or watching online. And so I need to establish a quorum. So I will go, and since you're speaking first, David, David, are you here?
Here.
Thank you. Bill?
Present.
Ryan?
Also present.
And I, Bob Weller, am here. Christy Knight is out today with an excuse absent. All right, so since Christy was going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, Ryan, can I ask you to do that, please?
Absolutely. Okay, ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, that moves us into the budget discussion. And because I'm so good at always going to the right person, Amanda's smiling very big, so that means it goes to her. So Mrs. Phillips, I hand it off to you. Oh, you get the clicker? Got it? I got it. Okay.
President Weller, so tonight I hope to give you a glimpse into some of the details of the governor's 25-26 state budget proposal, as well as how that will impact the budget, as well as some of the overall themes and key points on the budget proposal. We'll also get to talk a little bit about our current enrollment, ADA, and how that impacts our ending fund balance. We'll also talk about some of the proposed reductions and that impact to the ending fund balance. And then we'll wrap up the study session, or at least my section of the study session, with next steps. So diving into the themes of the budget that the governor proposed is one thing that was weighing very heavy, obviously, is it came out the week of the fires in LA County. So there were a lot of questions about future revisions and what the education side of the budget is all right. It's doing pretty well. We saw some modest increases in ongoing resources, some flexible one-time money, and very few new programs. There were some potential, as we were talking about, significant changes could be coming at May revise. as we look at the bigger picture and the state economy, there are a couple of things that we should pay attention to. Inflation, it's still creeping up. It's being a little stubborn. It's anticipated to peak at 3.3%, based on UCLA's economic forecasts. Our labor market our unemployment is still predicted to rise to 4.3%.
Do you know if those forecasts were taking into account any of the recent actions that would have been proposed, that would have been going on?
I heavily doubt it based on when that
This was
performance
probably quite old then, yeah, so the inflation may go a little more than 3.3 based on that.
Let's see, and that's probably going to come in the risk to the state budget area where we talk about federal policy uncertainty. All that. But and the stock market is showing volatility. I think we've talked about interest rates. Additional reductions are probably not going to be seen until potentially late 2025, they're saying, but
Can I ask a question on that?
yeah.
So how do interest rates affect us if we're not borrowing?
It's housing, and so property taxes, so it affects education through property taxes.
Interesting. One thing I'd make a note of if we do this in the future, when you do interest rates, you probably want to break out the difference between short-term and long-term. I'll talk to you about it later because that's just what I do for a living. But there's a reason that they're lowering short rates, but long rates have actually gone up. There's a reason. We'll deal with that
Yeah,
behind the
sure, no
scenes.
problem. So in general, California economy is continuing to grow with some mixed signals. The governor's budget includes a $17 million surplus. It's mostly based on personal income tax coming in higher. It's coming in about 4% higher for 25-26 than 24-25. So that's basically where he's getting his $17 million surplus from.
That is nothing for a state budget of,
No.
what is it, $1 trillion? I'm like, what? That's like a penny.
No, but in comparison to the large deficits that he was predicting in the prior years, having any sort of surplus is probably very exciting for the governor. And then again, the risks we were talking about, just the stock market volatility, the extreme weather, delayed tax collections, federal policy uncertainty, during, as you mentioned, and elevated interest rates. So specific budget proposals that the governor has included. So the cost of living adjustment, or COLA. Right now, he's included 2.43% in his proposal. It is 5% less than what was previously budgeted or forecasted. I'll tell you today, hot off the press, I was at a forum earlier today. So when that 2.43 was forecasted, we were missing 2 of the data points. We have 1 more data point right now. And so right now the calculation is looking at 2.15 to 2.24%. So it's a little lower even than that.
What were the 2 data points?
It's 2 more, we have 2 more data points of 8, I believe, 8 total data points, I believe, that forecast COLA. And so once we get all of those, then they can actually average it all out.
But did they say which 2 were missing?
It's the final quarter for, I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's okay. I just was making notes. So one was final quarter results.
March or April,
Okay.
I think, is when the final quarter comes out.
It's
Okay.
a special kind of consumer price index
Yes.
that's just for government agencies. So the basket of goods and services that government agencies purchase is what this is based on, and they have 9 data points for determining that.
Pens and erasers. Okay.
It covers that, but.
No, that's what I meant, yeah.
Butter.
And gas, maybe. Thank you.
Gas is
Yeah.
probably in it.
Yeah, I was going to
So
say gas
we
is
have 1
probably in
more
it.
quarter left, and we'll see how that last one turns out. But at this point, it's looking like it might be a hair lower than even the 2.43. But that's what we used for tonight. Like I said, it was just about a couple hours ago that I heard that number, so I just wanted to share that with the board. We have a very lengthy named discretionary block grant that he has come out with. This is Support and Professional Development Discretionary Block Grant, which will be a nice acronym that comes with that one for us to use.
That they got.
So right now, it looks like based on Prior year ADA, and the random number is about $323 per student. They're estimating it could be between 1.7 and $1.8 million for us. At this point, they're saying it's discretionary, could be used for rising costs. They've also provided some other suggestions for districts to use it for, such as CTE, recruit and retain teachers, professional development, and ELA framework. So there are some suggestions out there, but at this point, it's remaining completely discretionary. And I believe the need to be spent by date is June of 2029. Two programs he's continuing to fund, they're not necessarily new, but they do apply to us, so I wanted to share them, is the Equity Multiplier. So that one is only applies to Valley. These are schools with prior year non-stability rates greater than 25%.
Non-what rates?
Non-stability rate. So that is the percentage of students at a school site who did not complete a full year of learning in one school due to reasons like truancy, expulsion, or other unknown reasons. So you would have to have 25% or greater non-stability rate and 70% or greater socioeconomically disadvantaged to qualify.
That's not a lot of schools.
No,
Yeah. So it's very specific.
probably a lot of continuation schools.
Yeah.
So for us, Valley has that, which is great. We're glad that they continue to get funded. I think the estimate right now is there's a little less funding for us based on the number of schools and the allocation, but at least we have continued funding for that program.
And when you say it's $30,000 less than it was the previous year, is that like 1% less? Is that 20% less?
That is a great question.
That's
I'm
a
not sure.
hard question, I know, but I'm just trying to figure out if that's a big number or a small number, relatively speaking.
It's half a teacher.
It's a small-ish amount for
Smallish,
that,
okay.
but I can follow up with the board on the exact allocation. It's only the second year for that, so this current year is the first year that they've had it. They had some carryover because by the time they allocated the funds, they didn't have any rules, they didn't have any methodology for schools to actually spend it. So basically, you had an entire year allocation you couldn't do anything with. So this is the first year they could actually use the money. And so this essentially will be the second year coming that they could actually use the funds.
Yeah, so it's not a number that we become dependent on, in a sense.
No.
So we've used it before, is that what you're saying, Amanda?
Correct.
Okay. And we'll be using it again this year, is that right?
Yes, and it's actually in the LCAP. You can see the services in the LCAP. Okay, and then the other one I just wanted to highlight is arts and music in schools. So that is an ongoing program as well. So that is what he's continuing to fund. It's allocated by school, and it's estimated about $115,000 less overall. I believe that one is about $1 million. And then
$1 million to our
overall,
district,
yes, to the district.
less. And do we have, or did you say this, do we have discretion on what schools?
No, it is based on their enrollment and then unduplicated.
Okay, got it.
So there's a portion that is distributed by enrollment, I believe, and then there's another portion that gets distributed by unduplicated.
So the number's about $1 million, it's $115K less, so
Then
it's a
this-
10% drop.
exactly. And that's because the overall amount is based on the state budget. So they have to allocate, I believe, 1% of the state budget. So as the state budget fluctuates, the overall allocation also changes. So how does this all impact our budget? So this slide, you can basically see, not our current year, so this is the 25-26 budget. So you'll see our 2 out years basically here. So you'll see the new COLA, 2.43 there. And then our enrollment, which I have adjusted basically looking at what our current enrollment is in January when I was making this. And then looking at our demographer report that we get, our current feeder enrollment that we get from all of our elementary feeders, and basically each of our grade cohorts and how they all mesh together. And so it looks like we needed to adjust it down a little bit from where we were at first interim. And so that's what you kind of see here is an adjustment in our 25-26 enrollment and 26-27 a little further down. And then what that does to our revenue, basically. So it's about $400,000 in 25-26, and then an additional $100,000 in the 26-27 year. But you'll see the COLA actually bumped up in 26-27. So if the world were to remain the same, it's a small impact overall.
It's like less than 0.4%.
If our enrollment had just stayed the same.
You brought it up. Can you clarify that more then? If,
Yes, so if there had been no impact maybe to enrollment, that change in COLA would have been even less impact on the revenue.
oh, because we're at 6,400 now and you're estimating 6162. Wow.
Yeah, so,
I'm always
and
doing
this just
percentages.
shows you our declining enrollment over time. So I like to use 13-14 because it's the beginning of LCFF, the local control funding formula. So that is when that formula became, it became created, it was born. Before that, we had revenue limit. It was a very different funding formula. So that's why I like to, this is like when time started. And so you can see our ADA is the orange line, so that's our average daily attendance, and the green bars are our enrollment. That is a tough sentence. So you can just see over a decade plus the decline in enrollment and the change in ADA. I also wanted to just point out the 3 years of COVID ADA relief that we have, because that drastically changes that orange line. Yeah. Bill remembers. He was here. Essentially, for perhaps those of us that weren't here, what happened is in 2021, because of the pandemic and because of the hybrid, it was a hold harmless year. We basically got to repeat 1920. So that's why that line is basically the same. And then 21-22, we had all the Omicron and the Delta variants. And so they let us say, well, take your current enrollment, but use your prior year 88 percentage, essentially. And so you're like, oh, okay, well, I have less kids, but I get to use my percentage from before. So, okay, that's okay. I can do that. And then 2023 was the beginning of the prior 3-year average, which then if you think about that, that's great for a declining enrollment district because that essentially means the prior 3 years, several of which were really 1920. Mm-hmm. So when you average those together, yes, that's really better, which is kind of why you see some of those dots might actually be higher than your enrollment. Because when you average prior years that are way far back, it's potential that that average is actually higher than your current enrollment.
So, oh, go ahead. Were you say something?
So that's the numbers that we received
Funded.
Funding on.
Yes, that's not who actually showed up that year. That's the funded ADA.
Right. I'm just wondering what we actually showed up that year, how much of a drop we'd see in that, and is it coming close to where the 57, 77? I mean, it should at this point be pretty much the same as what would be, I mean, the 2024, 25 number should be about the same.
You can, and I could say this with near certainty that nearly every one of those years, obviously minus the COVID years, that each one of those is probably the prior year's ADA. Because prior to the 3-year average coming into play, you pretty much had 2 choices. You could take your current year or your prior year, whichever one was better. And for as far back as I could see, almost always the prior year was better. And so you could almost always guess that the prior year's ADA is probably the real ADA. So that's a good, just quick test for it. But we have our P2s, obviously, or our second period attendance. I could get the boards, the real ADA if you're curious.
Not that curious, but basically, I mean, basically you could say that ADA is back to normal at this point.
I don't know that I would say it's back to normal, if you're thinking pre-pandemic. I mean, our real ADA was probably close to 94, 95% maybe on average.
No, I should say, without the ADA really in there. We were looking at the ADA without. Never mind. I'm going someplace that's irrelevant. I'm going to call non sequitur on this. Let's move on.
I do have a question, kind of not related entirely, but so we have basically 4 major high schools. Of course, we have Valley. However, most of the students sit at the 4. And there's approximately this year 6,400 kids. What capacity could we take in our district? Like 10,000 kids with the current facilities we have? I know for the audience, I did not prepare Amanda for this. I'm not trying to put her on the spot. I really was just trying to know if we know any type of number, because we're down 20% in a decade, and that's a lot.
That's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer to that.
Okay.
We probably could tell you maybe historically that the sites were obviously significantly larger than they are. I know the comprehensive sites were over 2,000 at some point in time.
And I can ask.
I'll click your button.
I can answer this from when I was sitting out in the audience back in 2007, 2008, before we were building Del Lago. The school sites were looking at an attendance of about 2,200, 2,300 per site. They were all basically built for, I think they said about 1,900, and we didn't want to do any portables or anything, so classrooms were overcrowded. So I'd say at that point where we were at 7,000 or 8,000 looking to add, I mean, our capacity could easily be 9,000 based on where we were and what we were adding. I think we were adding to help alleviate that. So
That's super helpful.
that's where I would be.
And my only caution to that would be, I know at least in the time that I've been here, we have lots of language around classroom size, and we have different purposes for different classrooms. So I know we have just different restrictions and different purposes for classrooms that we perhaps did not have a decade ago.
Got it.
So we would, but part of facilities master plan is going to be a utilization study. So they will actually walk every one of our schools and classrooms and do a study, and that will include the types of classrooms and the purposes. So we will actually have a really great report and study to tell us exactly that, the capacity and utilization of all of our schools.
Great. Thank you.
Bob, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'm here in the Ethernet. I got a question to ask you regarding class size. Where are we at with class size right now? Do we have a understanding of where our class sizes are per teacher?
We do. We have a variety of class sizes depending on the type of class. So I think we could provide the board the different types of classes and the different sizes, but there are many different types.
Okay, is there a possibility we can look at that? I'm just trying to get a understanding and a feel, what the variability is.
Yeah, we can absolutely share that with you.
I got just a dumb clarifying question here. Enrollment is the total kids we have signed up, and ADA is the actual number of kids we got paid for, right?
Yes. Yep. In this case, it's what we got paid for. Bill, what you were asking necessarily is who's really showing up in that particular year, because this is what we got funded for that year, not necessarily who showed up that year.
And actually, yeah, that's the best way of saying that line, that orange line, instead of having a hill, would have a dip instead.
Yeah, you just might see it like
Yeah.
one of those. Nice, straighter slant. All right. So all that said, if we look at this chart, what you're seeing here is the unrestricted ending fund balance compared first interim and based on the assumptions with the governor's budget and updated enrollment figures as we've been chatting about. So 24-25, you see, stays the same. And then 25-26 and 26-27, you have those small dips that we talked about.
Yes, Bob.
Question, if for some reason in 26, 27, our reserve drops to below the 5%, wait, well, I thought the reserve was supposed to be 7%, please help me. No, it's 5.
The board is required
Okay,
5%.
cool. So then, if it drops below 5, do we have like 6 months or a year to fix it, or is it immediately the state steps in and it's all done?
So no, the 5% is actually the board's requirement. The state's requirement is 3%.
Okay,
So the 5% would be the board's requirement. The board would not be happy, I believe, if we did not meet the 5%. So our goal long before then would be to make sure that we had adjustments and we had a plan to make sure we met that 5% reserve, which is why you have a multi-year plan, so that you have a nice long runway to make sure you can see whatever problems are coming down the road. And then, but the state wouldn't necessarily have a problem until we didn't meet that 3%.
correct. And then do we have,
And even then, we would basically just be, if we only didn't meet the 3% in that third year, we would just be qualified. So we certify, when I come to you at first interim and say, we certify positive,
Yeah.
which means that we've met our obligation in all 3 years. If you don't meet it in the third year, you're qualified. And if you don't meet it in, then the really, really bad one is negative. And that's when you don't meet it in both or all 3 years. You would be really naughty.
naughty. Gavin.
So there is that. So because you continue to see that trend of deficit spending and that the impact of the governor's budget and our enrollment is still, well, maybe not giant, it's still a negative impact on revenue. We do want to address the deficit as the board has asked us to. So, and just to take a minute, defining that for us, we are spending more than in our expenditures than we are bringing in revenue in our budget. So when we say addressing the deficit, we're trying to flatten out that deficit spending in our budget. And to do this, we believe that that number is about $8 million spread out over 2 years. That combination of reducing personnel, services, and capital expenditures to equal out that $8 million would help us get to that goal. The concept would be to implement the first portion of that in 25-26, so approximately $4 million of that. And then we would be able to review whether that second year of reductions would be needed each year at closeout. And as we adopt each budget, we could identify whether we could delay portions, pieces of that second $4 million chunk based on what we see coming, whether there's changes in revenue, whether there's changes in ADA. We do have some changes in how ADA recovery is coming. So that could really change ADA funding in the future. So there are just some different things that are coming that we could potentially maybe delay some of the reductions and shift that maybe to the third year. And if we don't have to implement as many reductions, that would be the plan.
And then on the reductions, is that something that comes before the board to vote on?
Yes, the personnel reductions would come through HR in March.
In March? Oh, wow. It's pretty fast, okay.
So the unrestricted ending fund balance with reductions would be the dark green bar. So that light green bar is with the governor's budget and enrollment. And then the dark green bar takes into consideration $4 million worth of cuts in 25-26, and then an additional $4 million in 26-27. And then below, you can see the deficit spending currently in the orange, and then after reductions. And you can see, while there's still $10 million of deficit spending, it has at least flattened out, and it is not increasing. And again, there's still an amount of deficit spending that just at some point in educational budget is expected with the mechanisms of funding and the MYP with the unknown future. So to get that down to zero would be a little challenging. But this at least flattens out that giant line that you would see. So we hope that meets the goal. And then what's next? In the budget process, now the Senate and the Assembly have a lot of fun with the governor's proposal, and they get to go through all their subcommittee hearings and negotiate and do all their fun things. And then in June, the legislature will have to adopt their version of the state budget. And then we get a tiny little piece of that in June. We'll have to adopt our budget in there. And then by June 30th, obviously the governor has to adopt a state budget. So we'll see you several times before then. Obviously, we'll be here in second interim in March, obviously, as well. But that's at least the state adoption process and our adoption process. Happy to answer any questions that we haven't answered already.
Oh, but thank you from me.
Follow up with equity multiplier and class size information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Superintendent Pearson, before we move on to the next topic, is there anything you need to say or want to say?
Your microphone. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so Superintendent Peterson, would you like to share anything?
If we are ready to move on to the next item on the agenda, I'll just need the clicker.
Okay, so we'll move on to the governance part of this meeting. For those in the audience, we are just going to do the board workshop on finances, and we're still trying to finish the governance handbook, which oversees how the board should run and work within each other, and we decided to add that to this meeting. So that's why we're doing that in a combined meeting. Sir?
Perfect. Yes, as you'll recall, we had an all-day governance workshop in August where we had some training on ethics training and Brown Act basics, and then we spent part of the day going over our protocols and looking at the previous governance handbook. We didn't finish the work, so we had another evening board workshop in October to continue the discussion on our protocols, and we did cover basically all of the board agreements, the norms, the protocols of how we conduct business. There is a portion of the proposed governance handbook that we haven't looked at yet, and that's what I propose we do tonight, with the idea that perhaps we will finish our review and have a completed governance handbook that we could bring back to the board for adoption. But I wanted to put some things into perspective because board members have been asking me, what is a board protocol? What is a government agreement, a norm, and how does that relate to board policies and administrative regulations and ed code, et cetera? What is what? So I thought I would begin with just a brief primer on what those different policies, laws are. So on this slide, I just have a definition of what a board policy is. School board policies are formal decisions made by the elected members of the school district board. They provide broad direction for the district and its schools, typically addressing general principles and the goals the district aims to achieve. And quite often we bring board policies for you to approve. Distinction, policies are often aspirational or strategic, guiding the overall operation of the district. They'll cover areas such as student discipline, curriculum standards, employee relations, budget priorities. So what's an example? A policy could state that district schools will be closed campuses, but the specific actions to close campuses and provide exceptions, for example, off-campus passes, would be developed through administrative regulations. So that's what the next slide is. In administrative regulation, they're more specific. These are the rules and procedures that we put in place so that the administration can implement and carry out the policies of the board. So regulations are more operational in nature and focus on how the policies will be implemented. Example, if a school board policy is to ensure safe and respectful campuses, The corresponding administrative regulation might lay out specific procedures for reporting bullying incidents, how they are investigated, and what actions will be taken. So that's the difference between a policy and a regulation. They are very local. Those are adopted by this team right here. However, much of what we do is actually governed by the California Education Code. That's state law. So the Education Code is the state law that provides a framework for all public education in California, covering a broad range of topics, including the governance of school districts, the rights and responsibilities of students and teachers, funding, curriculum, special education, etc. Distinction between policies and ARs. The Ed Code is a state-level law and takes precedence over both school board policies and regulations. If a district policy or regulation contradicts state law, the Ed Code would prevail. It's more rigid and prescriptive compared to school-level rules. So example, the Ed Code mandates certain requirements for student testing, graduation requirements, teacher credentialing requirements. Districts must comply with these state laws, even if their local policies or regulations differ.
So I have a question. When you say that the Ed Code is a state-level law, so who designs the Ed Code, and then does it go before the Assembly and the Senate, and the governor needs to sign off on it?
Exactly. So all the Ed Code laws are passed by the state legislature, consisting of the Assembly and the Senate. So we've all had the basics about how a bill becomes a law, and the governor signs it, and then it's implemented.
But is it like the Department of Education that pretty much writes it and then sends it off to the Assembly and all, or does the Assembly subcommittees write their own?
Yeah. Yeah, it does depend. The Assembly members and senators, and they have education committees of both, and they are receiving ideas and input from all sorts. The California Department of Education is the executive branch in this whole mix.
I'll just add, sometimes there's local advocacy groups, state advocacy groups, all kinds of parental groups, all kinds of groups that lobby state senators.
So really, if you want to make a change, contact your congressman.
State assemblyman or your state senator. Congressman for a little later. That's the next slide, actually. So we have our own board policies, our own ARs. We have the California state law, the Ed Code, that governs most of what we do. There are also federal laws that impact our work.
Is this where we changed the name of the LCAP to just the CAP? Sorry.
The LCAP is Ed Code. And so here we're talking about the Every Student Succeeds Act. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act, federal government, Congress, was originally passed in 1965. It's been reauthorized different times. You may have heard recently when it was the No Child Left Behind Act. Now it's the Every Student Succeeds Act. And we do receive funding, so like all of our federal title programs come from this umbrella of laws. And because we accept the funding, they have federal laws, mandates that we have to abide by, such as they would require states to test students in language arts and math. So our own state, through the Ed Code, complies with the federal requirement by creating our entire testing regime that we have. Another federal law that impacts us is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act.
So, John,
Yes.
John, so you said No Child Left Behind is still the same as All Children Will Succeed? Is that what
Every Student Succeeds has superseded No Child Left Behind. They're different iterations of the same law.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. I won't read every word on the slide, but these are the federal laws that mandate what we do for special education students. They mandate that students with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, and they mandate the development of individualized education programs, IEPs. And federal law requires that we put students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I'm being reminded that you need to make sure you're using your clicker.
There we go. Thank you.
So while you're already interrupted then,
Huh?
so if we were to talk about a the organizational structure of what you do as a leadership team, right? Would you put the federal Department of Education at the top of it? Or would you put the state level as the top, and then the federal kind of throws in some extra laws?
The state and federal work together, so you really would be, what most impacts us on a daily basis is the state law. And the state laws are written to accommodate the federal laws, because a lot of what the federal mandates goes through the state level and then filters down to us.
So you put the state law as the supreme ruler, shall we say, of education here in California.
Depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Depends on the topic.
and so the laws in a sense are created there, and then based on that, as well as federal input from the various acts that exist. There, then the board itself kind of creates the policies that are certain that.
The local implementation of state and federal laws, yes.
Okay, and then you all create, or I guess we create together the ARs. The ARs?
The board policies. And in our district, we have the board approve the ARs. In other districts, the administration itself develops the ARs, and they are approved by the board.
I can just add some, mic on now? I can add some context. I think it depends programmatically on what we're looking at or analyzing or studying or what we're trying to review for compliance. So as John mentioned, the federal government provides us title funding. And so when we're looking at programs for example, English learners, or when we're looking at funding for low socioeconomic students in particular sometimes, and special education, there's something called federal program monitoring that happens every 3 years, which extensively reviews every single dollar we spent from the federal government, and is it directly addressing the needs of the particular students it was designed to address. But when it comes to the LCAP, we have a whole different accountability measurement and reporting that we have to do to the state. And that one's for unduplicated students. And sometimes there is some minor overlap with the exception of special education, I would say. But yeah, so it kind of depends.
Thank you for clarifying that. Let me speak into this. White's down or?
White is up, you're good.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. You know, one thing, and I mentioned in my speech last time, is like, you know better locally what our kids need to succeed. And I feel like you guys have such a burden on yourself from state and federal paperwork that does not allow you to make the changes that need to be made in our specific district. So I just want to say things that you may not want to say or think. I don't even know if you're thinking that, but I just want to let you know that, and I know the board agrees with me on this, and David does, and Christy, who's not here, we totally want to stand behind you in any changes that you need to feel like we need to make to make this successful. Because, I mean, we've got some struggling kids, and it really breaks my heart. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a real quick recap, there's some other federal laws too. Yes.
I'd like to add, I absolutely agree with Bob on this one, our president. We whatever changes that need to be made to help our kids do better, especially in math, I would definitely support it 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Another federal law that impacts schools is Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any education program or activity that receives federal assistance. This includes protections against sex-based harassment and ensuring gender equality in sports, STEM programs, and other educational opportunities. Title IX is broader than just gender equality in sports. It also addresses issues such as sexual harassment and sexual assault in schools, ensuring that all students, regardless of gender, have equal access to educational opportunities. So Title IX, another federal law, FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. FERPA is a federal law that protects the privacy of student education records, gives parents and students, once they turn 18, certain rights over their education records, including the right to access, review, and request corrections to those records. Distinction, the FERPA ensures that educational institutions handle student records in a confidential manner and restricts the circumstances under which these records can be shared. It also provides the ability for parents to be involved in decisions regarding their child's education records.
So does that supersede anything that the state passes in terms of parental notification?
Whatever, yeah, federal laws state laws tend to have to correspond to federal judicial decisions, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We also have the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, which has an impact on schools. It's a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability, applies to all public and private schools, mandates that schools provide reasonable accommodations for students with disabilities. The distinction here is while the IDEA specifically focuses on special education, the Americans with Disability Act ensures accessibility and non-discrimination for all students with disabilities, whether or not they have an IEP. And one last one, we also have the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. That's actually federal, ensuring that children and youth experiencing homelessness have access to the same public education as other children. So.
That was really good. That was extremely helpful, actually.
Thank you. We then come to board agreements, norms, and protocols. So we've had board policies, we've had administrative regulations, we've had the California state law, the Ed Code, and we've had various federal laws, and now we have board agreements. That's the norms and protocols that we as a governance team agree to in our teamwork together. These are the informal agreements, the protocols, the operating procedures that we adopt to guide the behavior and functioning of the board itself. They are typically more about governance, communication, and the way the board works with the administration, the community, and the public. Distinction, these agreements are often procedural and internal, focusing on how the board members will conduct meetings, make decisions, interact with one another, and the district staff. They are not legally binding in the same way as policies or regulations, but they're an important part of effective governance, how we work together. Example, a school board protocol might outline how board members should engage with the community during public hearings, or how the board will handle conflicts of interest.
Quick question. So we have this on our website. Sorry that the people at home may not be able to see this. It's the Escondido Union High School District Protocols, Board and Superintendent Operating Procedures. Is that what you're talking about here? Or
Exactly. And those are our most recently adopted ones.
Right, I printed them out this morning. Are they in?
Yes,
the
they
document?
are all embedded in the new and revised document.
Okay, thank you.
So summary of distinctions, board policy, broad guiding principles set by the board, administrative regulations, how the admin will implement the board policies, California Ed Code, state level law that we follow, federal laws, that's the federal laws that govern and provide for disadvantaged students and students with disabilities primarily, Title IX protections. And then we have school board agreements and protocols. I have the arrow there. That's what we're focusing on this evening. So to put into context what this is all about. We're revisiting the governance handbook that we, as I mentioned, we looked at in August, and we looked at a proposed draft in October. The handbook is the framework for how we as a governing team choose to conduct our work, interact with staff. The purpose of the handbook is to ensure that board members understand their roles and responsibilities, adhere to best practices, and operate in a transparent and effective manner, compliance with legal requirements. So we've looked at our agreements and norms. If you'll look at the contents on the second page of the draft book, where it says agreements to facilitate governance, page 8 on down, we've covered those and come to an agreement on those, and they are embedded into this document. What we never really spent much time with was the unity of purpose section, which starts on page 4. And unity of purpose refers to the idea that all board members should work together collaboratively and cohesively toward a shared vision and common goals for the district. It emphasizes the importance of alignment in the board's efforts, decision-making, and overall direction. The unity of purpose ensures that board members, despite their individual perspectives or differences, are focused on the broader mission of improving education for students and supporting the success of the district. This concept helps prevent dysfunction or fragmentation in board actions and encourages collaboration for the benefit of the community and schools. So key aspects of unity of purpose: a shared vision and goals, collaboration and teamwork, respecting roles and responsibilities, clear and open communication, building trust and mutual respect, focus on student success, and avoiding divisions or personal agendas. And so to that end, what we probably want to look at are two things. If you look at page 4, our governance team belief statements and what we hope to accomplish as a governance team. So our belief statements help guide us as the governing team of the district, that's board and superintendent, for what we believe our responsibility is as a governing team. And we have 5 proposed statements here, and I have them on the slide, and they're also here in the draft. My question tonight is, do we reaffirm those 5 statements? Can we reaffirm them? Do we want to edit them? Do we want to add new belief statements? And perhaps I should just, by way of introduction, read them quickly. Our 5 current belief statements are that the governing board, we hold high expectations for and improve the academic achievements of all students within the school district. We believe it's the responsibility of the governing board to provide a highly skilled, caring, and committed staff that collaborates to positively support and affect instruction and learning. The governing board provides the appropriate educational facilities that create an environment supportive of both teaching and learning within a safe and orderly setting. We believe that the board promotes, fosters, and develops community connections through strong and effective communication and partnerships, as well as opportunities for shared input. And 5th, support organizational alignment that maximizes student academic success. Do we still believe those, or do we believe other things in addition? I open it up for conversation.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I definitely believe that we all have some ideas on this, and that I appreciate you scheduling this tonight so that we could discuss about it. Thankfully, you went over that we need to have clear and open communication and high respect for one another. So we will apply those as we share what we're about to share. Vice President Williams, would you like to share some things?
Sure, yes. My first comment was on number 3, provide the appropriate educational facilities that create an environment. I would probably possibly add resources to that as well, because we provide more than just the facility side of things. Sorry, Amanda.
What would you define as resources, like an example of resources?
Well, I'd say, in this, computers is a great example, right? Computers, books, pencil, like whatever it might be. Like, we're here to give them the tools that the kids and the teachers need to be successful and accomplish these goals, right? And I think by just saying facilities, I think that kind of shortchanges it a little bit. Amanda's probably the one that wrote that, but.
It was written long before I got here.
Oh, you have a board.
Yeah, I'm going to copy down our idees.
Is it behind us because of the camera? Or
No, I can.
The camera can move.
They're on wheels. I can move them wherever we want.
if you could thanks, John.
Yeah, but I would just, that's my comment is, I think we provide more than just the
Like to
building.
bring a chair over so that you can see. So I have some questions about
Ooh, you okay?
the, we already have one staffer out, Bill.
There's a mat right here to
Oh,
prevent people from tripping on the cord, so you trip on the mat instead.
well. Thank you for your sense of humor.
Well, what happens is you move the chair and it picks the mat up.
Oh, yeah,
And you
that's,
have the mat right there and you trip right over it, so it made a hazard instead of.
well, we're glad you're okay. All right, so then, I think that's, I like what you said, Ryan. Anybody, David, on number 3? I've got a couple comments on 1, 2, and 4, and 5, but David, did you have anything on 3?
On 3, I'm okay with 3. I mean, I'm with you. I'd rather focus on 1, 2, and 4, and 5. But I'm going to listen to what you have to say first, and then I'll interject.
Okay, great. So I did read everything, and I appreciate, John, you putting this together. It's a lot for sure. So 1, repeating it, hold high expectations for and improve the academic achievement of all students within the Escondido Union High School District. So I feel like we need to figure out where these are defined. Are they defined in the LCAP? What metric is used, and define high expectations. I know that we spoke about this in your office the other day as it talked about vision, and you were like, well, vision is different from results, I think you said. And so I'm kind of curious, where is the academic achievement of all the students? Like, how is that defined? And can we find it, or do we need to define it?
Right now, I think we're trying to establish the fact that the board believes it is responsible for holding high expectations and for improving the academic achievement of all students. I don't know that this statement is the place for getting into the specifics of how we would do that.
Correct.
But we're agreeing that we are responsible for that.
That's what I see that too, is this is what the board believes, not just the academic achievement should be at this number, and we can't put that into the unity of purpose in the belief statement, but we do believe we need to have a high achievement and stuff like that.
Yeah, I believe what you're asking for is in a different section.
Cool.
A different part. This is more of like a high end, where are we coming from?
Yeah,
Perspective.
mission
more than anything
statement
else.
type.
David, any thoughts?
Nope, I'm okay with that.
I feel like it's a news broadcast where the guy asks the question and there's this like delay. Oh, yes, okay. Thank you, David.
I already, I'll be quite honest. I already sent all my feedback on the governance, and I have a detailed information regarding certain areas that I think we need to focus on. So we can go through this belief statement, but I'll wait till we finish up on the presentation, then I will interject at the time where I feel we have some weaknesses.
All right, then just moving on to number 2, then provide a highly skilled, caring, and committed staff that collaborates to positively support and affect instruction and learning. I mean, I believe there are many teachers in our district like this, but I feel that ESTA really provides a stumbling block in terms of the argumentativeness they have with us. And I want to bring them along with us so that as we come to agreements on things, they're like, let's go. It's not every year a beating, because I think that really pulls down the highly skilled, caring, and committed staff that collaborates to positively support and affect instruction.
What does that have to do with our belief?
Yeah.
That's more of a, hey, I want to talk to us, I want to make them do this. Our belief is that we want highly skilled people, okay? We're not talking about how we get them. We're not talking about beating up and working with us at this time. We're just talking about what we as a board believe. Okay, ESTA should not even be in this conversation as far as I'm concerned, because it's what we believe we need to provide the students.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Got it. And if we're going to maybe have another belief, maybe we put that in there as a belief that we want to work with ESTA on providing highly skilled, caring, and committed staff that collaborates. If we're going to look at what our system is, please let me interject. Let me finish, and then I'll let you speak, please, respectively. if it's our belief system, then should we not put what our beliefs are? Yes, we believe in providing highly skilled, caring, and committed staff that collaborates to positively support and affect instruction and learning. I truly agree that we have fantastic teachers, and I've engaged with a lot of them. And I've heard a lot of discussions on what their needs are. And I don't think we're meeting all their needs, to be quite honestly. Okay. And I think we need to do a better job of meeting their needs. That's my opinion. So,
Okay. And David, what I want to say is that we, as a board, do not interact with ESTA. We interact with John Peterson, our superintendent. We can't say, hey, you know, as a board, we should have a meeting with ESTA. Our role is to give direction to the superintendent and provide the direction for the board, not work with the individual labor partners.
Which is interesting because that would sort of go against number 4, promote, foster, and develop community connections through strong and effective communication and partnerships, as well as opportunities for shared input. So there's a little bit of a contradiction.
I think the board, I believe that, we believe that the district should be promoting and fostering, developing community connections through strong and effective communications. I believe the school district should be doing that.
It's our responsibility as a board. Remember the
It's
statement
our
at the top.
responsibility of the board.
We believe
to make
that
sure-
it is our responsibility to, meaning
Yeah.
the governing team.
It's not that
So-
we are doing it.
so,
We
so
direct.
and John, if that's the governance requirements that we're not allowed to engage or discuss any topics or any concerns with ESTA, then it is what it is.
I
But
wouldn't
is that
say
the
that there
case?
is any requirement. No, we as a board can engage with our labor partners and develop good relations with our labor partners. I think you're mixing it up with the collective bargaining process and how you conduct negotiations. There are good norms,
I'm not.
but developing
I
good
think-
relations with your labor partners is key.
John, I'm not mixing it up with. I do agree with what you said the last part, that we need to build a better relationship with our partners. Okay, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's in the best interest of our teachers and our students. Okay, I'm not talking negotiations here. Okay, I'm talking about a higher standard of education for our students. You can tell I'm passionate about this.
Which is all fine and great, but the section that we're working on here is the high level beliefs that we have as a board and as a leadership team for the kids here.
Right.
And
What
the
are
district.
we responsible for?
And I mean, I do agree though, from, I think it was David that mentioned, you know, maybe there should be a line in terms of this referring to the staff itself, right? So number 2 is more or less saying, you know, the staff is provided, and we have this great staff for the students, right? I think what David was suggesting, and I kind of agree, right? Making sure that we're creating a great work environment for the staff, right?
Very good.
I like it.
Thank you, Ryan. I absolutely agree.
Right, and that, again, at this point, this isn't physical or actual goals that we want to accomplish. This isn't any of the nitty gritty type stuff. This is high level. What are we thinking, and where do we want to what do we generally want to go or offer?
I like it. That's excellent. Thank you. So we kind of jumped from anything else on it because we're sort of on 2, we jumped 3, and I brought up 4. So then I'll just read 4. Promote, foster, and develop community connections through strong and effective communication and partnerships, as well as opportunities for shared input. You know, I know that Dr. Casas, you work really hard, sorry to call on you, with the LCAP, you know, bringing in the community on that. So I think that, you know, we do a good job on that. You know, does anybody, you know, I took some notes here. You know, I think that opening up the board meetings with, you know, a new layout, as well as, we'll talk about this at another time, you know, trying to, you know, archive the video messages, but really, I mean, like, and I know you're working on this too, Superintendent, is that we have nobody here, but thank you for attending. The one person, we should get an award. If one person shows, you get the one person award once a month. To really try to open up communication with the community. I think that there's a lot behind the scenes, but we just don't see it at the board meetings.
Yeah,
Speaking,
I agree with Bob. I don't, a lot of times I don't see that, how we communicate, and I'm sure that our cabinet does communicate out to the community, and that's important. And I do believe in communications and partnerships with the community outreach. Keep them informed of what's going on within our school district and that. And I think that's very critical.
you see examples of that with Project Next that the board helped
Yeah.
bring on board. That's a community connection. You're going to see next week's board meeting presentation about CTE and our collaboratives with industry partners. Those are ways we reach out and collaborate with the community. And so this statement is simply stating that the board believes it is the board's responsibility to foster those kinds of connections.
I think you
The
have
LCAP
principals.
itself.
Principals are also on clubs like Rotary Club and things like that, also in the community.
Are you in Rotary?
I am not, but
Okay.
principals are.
Oh, interesting.
And
They are.
And
didn't
I
know.
am in Rotary.
Yeah, I knew you were. Yeah.
I'll just add as a former site principal that the majority of the communication parents here are from site leaders.
I have to remember that. I totally
and-
have to remember.
And honestly, sometimes the feedback I got was stop sending me texts, stop sending me emails because you're sending me too much. So it's an art to find the balance of how much is necessary.
Yeah,
But yeah, most of the communication comes from site leaders. So
yeah. That sounds good.
Jump up to number 5 here, support the organizational alignment that maximizes student academic success. I like the concept here, but I think it should be more than just about the alignment, organizational alignment. It's that whole concept of just continuous improvement, right? And we've got a lot of different models and different kind of organizational structures that we already have. With Dr. Koss, PLA, is that the name?
PDSA.
Or whatever.
Plan, do, study.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever that concept, right? I think that is a pretty well ingrained part of the district, and that general concept of continuous improvement. Because, we're saying, hey, we have, hold expectations. We have items, 2, 3, 4. We talked about a 5 possibly regarding the staff. And then like that 6, in a sense, is more like a catch-all, meaning, hey, this can be open-ended. Our goal is to make this better.
I like that.
Always make ourselves better.
So kind of instead of saying what 5 currently says, find a different thing that talks more about add conditions or continuous improvement. I like that. David?
Absolutely. Well said.
Well, he's an engineer, so he's going to totally agree with continuous improvement.
So what I heard
That's true.
was in number 3, when we're talking about providing adequate facilities for all of this good work to happen, we want to add an element of providing resources in general, facilities and resources. I heard that beyond providing the community with a highly skilled, cared, and committed staff, we want to support the staff and what they need to be successful.
Yeah.
Okay. And I also heard that in number 5, when we're talking about organizational alignment, we should add an element that suggests we believe in supporting our district in its continuous improvement efforts.
Because I think it's, organizational alignment falls within continuous improvement because it's the organization that needs to adjust, or it's the resources or facilities or whatever that might need to be.
You know what? I just want to say that I really appreciate the board and the cabinet. It's really neat to see this all come together. I mean, you guys are all working super hard. You are. I mean, I really noticed the change in the 2 years that I've been on the board. You guys are probably saying the same thing about me. But no, I really see an improvement, and I'm really excited.
Thank you. So if those are the things that we believe it is our responsibility to do. The next section is what do we hope to accomplish as a governance team, the board members and superintendent. Right now, what we have stated is that we hope to accomplish improving the academic achievement of all of our students, increasing and enhancing opportunities for every student to be successful, improving the overall educational experience for our students and their families, improving the quality of education that our students receive, developing a good working relationship with our staff, which kind of gets back to the belief statement we're developing here. So how do we reaffirm those as of what we hope to accomplish?
Well,
wanna
and
add
one of
any?
the things I didn't like when I first was reading this is I don't like what we hope to accomplish. I like goals instead of, oh, we hope we can do this. And the way I read that is, we hope we can do it, but I'd rather, I think putting it as a goal might be more positive.
I like that. The Mr. Miyagi,
Yeah,
do or no do.
I agree.
Exactly.
Okay, so rename this section.
There is no fail.
I like it.
Thank you, Martina.
So I have a question in terms of, I guess, the higher level of what we're trying to create here with the handbook, right? So we tend to see a lot of terms being thrown out there, like belief statements, missions, values, all these types of models, in a sense, you could say. Like, what are we creating here? And how do each of these relate to each other, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because we have all these different things, but I'm not quite sure how they work together.
It's interesting that you say that because I wrote next to this vision, like our vision. Like, I want to kind of rewrite our vision, but that's not for tonight. But it's like, I agree exactly what you said. There needs to be more interconnection of all of it. Because I printed out, it's interesting that you brought that up. Let me just grab this real quick here. My printer at home is actually pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited, except for this one thing. But I printed out, if I can find this. Bear with me. So it's like, it didn't print real well, but like on our website, you know, we have board protocols, board policies, mission, vision, district goals. It's like, you're kind of talking about how does this all interact with each other, right?
Yeah, well, because of John's presentation today, right, I understand the board policies, I
Yeah.
understand the protocols, the ARs, those
Yeah.
types of things, right? But it's the rest of it. So mission vision is a big one. And just trying to figure out, like, how does this all work together?
Yeah, I agree.
So I draw your attention to page 5 in the book.
Okay.
It builds upon what our belief statements are and what we hope to accomplish. It's what do we believe our governance role and responsibility is in light of those things. And so what we have on pages 5 and 6 these are really concepts that come from the CSBA Masters in Governance training that we did. We are to set the direction for our school district, which is the mission and vision, our strategic vision. That's the responsibility of the board. Establishing an efficient, effective structure, providing support through our behavior and actions, ensuring accountability to the public, and acting as community leaders. If you wanted to take a couple of minutes to look at those, I believe that that's what ties it all together.
So we're on the governance roles and responsibilities, sadly.
No, we're still on what we hope to accomplish.
Because John told us
No,
to
we
turn to
moved.
page 5.
No, you had a question to, I still haven't finished. You had a question as to how it all ties together.
Yeah.
We haven't totally moved yet.
Yeah. What we hope to accomplish as government team, I like goals, and I'm going back to, we are a governance team, we are a board, we are a school board, we have one employee, we have one staff member who we as a board interact with. I don't believe that we should be developing a good working relationship with our staff as board members. as a board member, I don't think I should be going and working on developing a good working relationship with Courtney.
But I am
do
gonna
that
say,
either.
but I'm gonna say,
Outside of the meeting, though, but I shouldn't be going and saying, hey, let me go develop a good working relationship with one of the teachers or whatever.
but
Cordial,
we're, the develop a good working relationship, I think, goes back to team. So I think that
this is our government's team that we,
As a
as a
team.
staff, me and you and Ryan and David and Christy, develop a good working relationship with our staff, with John. If anything, our staff is John, I'd like to say, hey, let's specify with our superintendent, so a future board member doesn't say, oh, I gotta work on a good working relationship with Amanda over here so I can get what I want.
I see what you say, just so you know. So I don't totally agree with it, but I do see what you're saying.
So I wouldn't mind rewording that to have it a different expression, saying how we work with our labor partners and our staff and teachers and everything, but not to have a good working relationship, because that seems to me to be overstepping his bounds.
Well, and I would agree with that in terms of a working relationship, right? There's nothing wrong about having relationships with various people,
Relationship
Right.
is fine.
but as a
But I
goal
think-
here to accomplish, to focus on building relationships with everybody, I agree.
But if we're gonna take out working, I think we have to take out the whole line.
There's two different aspects. You can develop a good working relationship with the superintendent and cabinet. But then there is maintaining good relations with the entire staff.
Right. But that's not having a
Adding a little bit
good
more.
working relationship with staff.
What you're trying to do is protect the roles and responsibilities. It's
Right,
not the
but-
job of the board to be micromanaging.
And it's not our goal to do that. That if we're not supposed to be doing it, it shouldn't be our goal to do that.
So this is where I need a little help on this, is that it starts to get a little, like a lot of words to say the same thing over and over again. Like, does this whole section need to come out and we just move on to governance roles and responsibilities? Because
I think it's a good section. It was just the one statement, and even just if we need to remove the one word working.
well, I kind of need Brian's help on this.
I think the whole sentence in my copy, I just took off the sentence because I don't think we should be developing a working relationship with staff at all, period. We have one guy who we need to work with. That's John. We tell him what to do.
I think that's too narrow of a focus. I get the difference between cabinet and teachers, like cabinet, classified, certificate, David?
Well, I think this section, to me, is kind of written in a way that it's not really giving us me a good feeling that we're just kind of wordsmithing and soliding here. I really want to have some true, like, develop a good working relationship with our staff. That's a given. Okay. So are we talking staff? We're Bill, I gotta bring it back to what you said before. These are just general, guidelines. Why are we talking about our staff? What staff? Are you talking to cabinet? Are you talking about John? Are you talking about teachers? What relationship? It's not clear to me. Okay. So, we went into a lot of discussions on, we should just be building a relationship with John. Well, that's understood as a part of, if you read the governance, it clearly states the roles and responsibility of everyone. So if this is our goals, can we clearly make them goals? I mean,
Yeah.
Because this doesn't seem to me to be just a bunch of bullet points with words behind it that don't really clearly make it crystal clear on, what are our true goals? Goals are achievements that we want to be successful in. Okay, so I sure I can understand keeping this generalized as much as possible, but again, let's look back. Develop a good working relationship with our staff.
Hey, David, I have a thought.
Very clear.
You didn't see Bill, but he's an excellent artist. And he scratched out the whole section. Would you agree with that?
Okay.
That's what you were saying too. It's like we got too many words in here. As I'm reading it, it says the same thing that the previous
Yeah,
paragraph says.
so based on Bill's
Exactly.
artistic skills.
Thank you. I agree with you.
Okay.
I was struggling with this reading it. Thank you.
Okay.
What we hope to accomplish, just kill the section.
Well,
Because, just to clarify, it's because you believe that in the what we hope to accomplish bullet points are actually covered in the belief statements.
100%
and
correct.
that's what I
Absolutely.
was trying to get at in
Yeah.
terms of, we already have a lot of these little models kind of scattered around.
Yeah.
It'd be great to kind of figure out how they all work together and use that as our focus rather
Too
than
much words.
bringing
Boom.
else.
Too
other
much
things.
words.
Absolutely. And Bill, I really appreciate your artistry there.
No, mine would end up being too much.
That's funny. When you stand up next time, please be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The second time.
So can I do some artwork on that other page? I've been doing.
Wait, on page 5?
No, just in terms of like what this handbook is and what we're doing.
Unity of purpose?
Yeah.
This sounds,
Oh, okay, great.
do you have any idea how much longer we're going to go?
Well, so Ryan, before you start drawing, so do you have a thought?
I could use a 5-minute.
Let's do it now, if that's okay.
Because I have a feeling this feels like it's going to go another hour.
Martine's like, oh, God.
And I kind
So
of figured we'd
we're
be
going to
done
take a
by now.
5-minute break.
I got to go hit my dog.
Okay, go.
Got a dog
Wait,
in
you're,
the car.
oh, the dog's in the car. I was like, are you driving home?
I just need some.
Okay,
We'll
5
take a
minutes.
5-minute break.
Okay.
mission would be above vision, or is vision first? Not that it matters, I was just kind of curious.
Well, according to my research here, vision is where you're going,
Okay.
high level, right? Mission is why you exist. Belief statements is what you believe.
Let me do this now.
Button.
Button down is mute.
Okay. David, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay, great.
We're back in session now?
We're back
Okay.
in session. So Superintendent, did you want to say anything before?
So Bob, before you start,
Yeah.
start, I just want to let you know, I'm listening to you guys and I'm not responding because I feel like when I do, I'm cutting somebody off. So I'm waiting for everybody to finish before I speak. So if there's a reason why you think I'm not engaged, it's because I'm letting everybody finish and not interrupting them.
Great, and I'll call out your name too if we're looking for something.
So you're setting
Okay.
some norms?
So the purpose of these governance workshops and the purpose of documenting what we discuss in the handbook is to basically just set out our working relationship as a governance team. Why did, back in August, we talked about why did we run for the school board? And we were able to share our reasons for serving on the board. And the idea here is that we have a lot in common, even though we might have differences of opinion. We have a lot in common about what our mission is. This handbook is strictly talking about our working relationship as a governance team. We're not talking about setting the mission and vision of the district, although that is the responsibility of the board to set the mission and vision for the district. That's what setting direction is all about. And that's what page 5 and 6, these are the concepts we learned at CSBA Masters in Governance. So basically, it's a 2-pager Masters in Governance program. And so you've written down their mission, vision. Yes, mission is why we exist. Vision is where we want to be in the future. Strategic goals. Yeah, the board would set strategic goals for the district. I think we agree on that. The unity of purpose is our agreement on all of these factors, that we agree that this is why we exist and what we're doing and working together. We keep that in mind so that we treat one another with respect. We have a system for how we respond to the public, how we respond to each other, how we vote, etc. That's what all of these norms are about. So it's just to make sure we're all on the same page in how we work together as a team. That's what this document is.
So in terms of the handbook itself, right, what within these things
I like it.
belong in a handbook?
I'm kind of with Ryan on that. I think like the handbook's a little big for exactly what we're trying to do, but.
I think it's all important stuff, right? It's just, that for me, it's like we're building the handbook, and I just want to make sure I understand where the handbook sits.
Yeah, I don't
within
think
all
you
the
put,
things that we have.
I don't think you put the mission and vision of the district in your governance handbook. You simply lay out the fact that the board is responsible for developing a mission and vision for the school district. So what do I think should be in the handbook? Pretty much what we have as the draft. A definition. It includes most of it. Yeah, it's what does effective governance mean? What is our unity of purpose? How are we going to work together on a common goal? What is our roles and responsibilities as a governance team? And then our agreements, our protocols, how we operate as board members. And that's all that's in here. And a governance calendar at the end.
Which I
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the calendar at the end. Thank you.
We've had in the past, we have a governance handbook that is rather
Well,
organized, I thought. We've
this-
also had
So-
protocols in a separate document and putting them all together in one unified governing handbook.
Because this governing handbook is pretty short. I kind of liked it, but maybe you just didn't feel that.
Well, but he combined
But
both
it left the
things together.
protocols out.
Yeah.
And those are an important part of a handbook.
That's
So,
why this is bigger, is because he combined two different things.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome, because that's what I'm trying to do, is consolidate and kind of formulate a pretty, very.
And another thing the board has pointed out is they want to improve the onboarding experience for brand new board members. This would be one aspect of that.
I get that. I do.
So regarding,
So
let's
it's
say,
an,
if
it's an
somebody's-
instructional guide for the board? Is that what you're saying?
This is a guide for the board, yes,
Okay. Standard operating procedure.
exactly. That's another way of looking at it.
Okay, David, Ryan's going to talk.
Yeah, so right now, so we have we'll call it, we already have a document for a vision, in a sense, right? We've got a document for a mission. They're usually sometimes the same page, I think, right?
Yes,
Read
they
them
are.
at board meetings.
Yep. Belief statements is what we just read, what we just finished.
They're a part of unity of purpose.
Okay. And then sometimes I see the word values running around. Do we have values at all within?
Just to the extent that the belief statements are values. What we hope to accomplish, which we're scratching, are values.
Okay, perfect. And then unity of purpose,
That's belief statements.
that was belief statements. But that was in here as well, wasn't it? Or no?
Yes.
That's this whole section.
Yes.
It's the unity of purpose section.
Unity of purpose, yeah.
So then how are we distinguishing unity of purpose versus belief statements?
Belief statements are, it's what unity of purpose is. The unit, it's
Same thing.
it's the name of the category.
In this
Okay.
case, they are the same.
Because there's that.
Yep.
That's for me, helping me, so.
Okay, so in a sense, our belief statements and unity of purpose, we can get rid of them. We can get rid of one of those sections in a sense.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Hey, I'm gonna get rid of it.
Hey, John, are we not posting this on the presentation or are we just looking at the paper version?
We're all looking at the.
We all have a paper version. You were sent a paper version this week.
Yeah, I got it
We'll-
here. I thought,
A document once it's adopted.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
We have nothing on screen for it.
We just have the slides to guide the discussion.
Okay, so we've got a unity of purpose / belief statements. We've got, and then the next section is the governance roles and responsibilities.
Think of that as what we learned at CSBA about what we learned at Masters in Governance regarding what our roles and responsibilities are, to set the direction for the district, to provide a structure for the district, to provide support to the district through our behavior and actions, to ensure accountability to the public that our schools are doing what they should be doing, and acting as community leaders representing the district.
All right, and that's the more like, hey, this is my job.
Yes.
This is my job description in a sense. Okay. And you said most of this is kind of cut and paste from CSBA?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
if not all of it.
It pretty much all is. Yes.
So are we considering ourselves on page 5 right now? Governance, roles, and responsibilities?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just read this out loud. It helps me. Citizen oversight of local government is the cornerstone of democracy in the United States of America. The role of the trustees who sit on locally elected school boards is to ensure school districts are responsive to the values, beliefs, and priorities of their communities. Boards fulfill this role by performing 5 major responsibilities: setting direction, establishing an effective and efficient structure, providing support, ensuring accountability, and providing community leadership as advocates for children, the school district, and public education. You know, I think everything, if I can start, everything in there is good. The accountability part, I'm really struggling with, because once teachers establish, you know, after their 2-year period, you know, it's almost like there's no accountability, you know, and that I struggle with that a lot.
So if you turn the page to page 6,
Well, once again, John's ready.
we elaborate on what assuring accountability to the public means. It's evaluating the superintendents in accordance with his contract, setting the policy for the evaluation.
Oh, wait, are you on page? Oh,
6.
wow, guess what? I lost a couple pages.
Yeah.
I got them. I'll find
You
them.
can look at mine right here.
I got it, bro. I got it. Thanks, John.
Setting the policy for the evaluation of personnel, monitoring, reviewing, and regularly revising policies, serving as a judicial and appeals body, monitoring student achievement and program effectiveness, and providing direction regarding program changes, monitoring and adjusting district finances, and periodically reviewing facilities issues, monitoring and providing direction for the collective bargaining process, and evaluating the board's performance through a board self-evaluation. That's what we mean by accountability.
Sounds good. Yep. David?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I'm waiting till we get to duties of the board members. I got some comments. So anyhow, continue.
Yeah, I'd say for me, now that I kind of understand where we're going and where certain things fit within, I'm good with that section too. So I'm good with moving on. So at this point, we did a few word changes on the belief statements. We got rid of the accomplished group.
Right.
And now we're moving on to page 8, right?
Well, actually, I'm still on governance roles and responsibilities. I do have one item here that I was concerned about.
Okay.
For
Are
the
you on page 5?
page 5, for the school board, for the board members, I don't believe it's our responsibility to establish the human resources framework that includes policies for hiring and evaluating personnel. I believe it's our policy to make sure, it's our responsibility to make sure that he does that, but it's not for us to do that. We're not supposed to establish that human resources framework. When you say framework, that tells me you're actually building a framework, not just a guidance or a direction.
Well, I think one way to fix your concern in a sense, right, is for the title, establish an effective and efficient structure for the EUHSD to employ, establish, adopt, whatever.
Okay. You know what? Something simple like that could help me with something like that, you know? You probably saw the same thing too. And it's, okay. Yeah.
Because I understand what you're saying. And that one does not fit with the rest of the bullets in terms of how it's written.
It really doesn't fit. And I'm really still not sure we need it there because that's not something that we as a board need to do.
But we as a board need to make sure that, in a sense,
The board
John
does have
does.
policies, though. There are board policies and ARs on human resource actions.
Is that really that we are establishing the human resources framework, or are we developing or are we putting the policies? To me, the framework is more of the doing. It's, yeah.
I think Ryan's comment should
We as a board
clarify
don't
that.
have any role and shouldn't be involved with, but that's the framework of an HR department. It's like, what do all the pieces, parts need? That, as a board, we're not doing that. That's what the director of HR does, and that's what the superintendent does. And as a board, we tell him, hey, look, you know, we want to have good policies for hiring and evaluating personnel. We can establish policies for hiring and firing, evaluating personnel, but we don't establish the framework for that.
No.
But we establish the policies.
But we
Bill?
establish a structure for the EUHSD to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Prefer
So
the word
Bill, I
framework?
agree with you. Bill, I agree with you on that. And I think Ryan's wordsmithing would probably resolve that issue. Can we agree on that?
I agree with that, guys. I mean,
Sure.
Just like adding an and to our mission statement.
Sometimes, yeah. Let's work with that and
Okay.
there's a part of me that wants to add a bullet point on that, but let me just see if it's back here real quick. So in page 6, under provide support through our behavior and our actions, bullet point, ensure a positive climate exists for the governance team. I really want to ensure that there's not just a positive climate exists for the governance team, but I want that there's a positive climate exists for the district, like for all teachers, to really help and encourage, them so they can help and encourage students. And I feel like it's, and forgive me for not ever sitting on another board for schools or teaching in a larger district, but it seems like, our district's a decent enough, small is enough size, I could say, that we could really develop a better climate of enthusiasm and accountability with the students. I feel like the students keep getting left out of this. Yes, Bill, I know that this is for us, but I want to help our actions and everything, help encourage the teachers and bring it along. And so I don't know if I do know, if somebody maybe could write something that adds something saying the way, one of our primary goals is to really develop enthusiasm and for the entire district, something like that. It's not a right word for it. I would want to work on that, but I'll make a note to myself because I don't think we're going to approve all this tonight. So I'll add something that we can come back to.
That section deals a lot with our behavior and actions as board members.
I got that.
Yeah,
No, I got
yeah,
that. But
so-
I'm saying I want to see that in a different section that really brings up the esprit de corps of the districts, of the district.
Would it make sense, sorry to interject, would it make sense to add ensure a positive climate exists for the governance team and district as a whole? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah. I mean, that's a simple way of doing it. Yeah.
That's easy. That's a line to fix.
To and. Sometimes little words make a big impact.
So does one. No. Or yes.
All right, we're making progress.
Anything else?
Okay, we're going to move on then, I guess. So John, where do you want to take us from here?
We've reviewed the entire document now because the agreements to facilitate governance are the ones we spent a great deal of time with over the last 2 workshops. That doesn't mean we can't look at them again or entertain any more suggested changes.
Hey, I do have one statement that I didn't see in there, and I just want to throw this out.
David, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. David, what section are you going to take us to in your mind? When you say this one statement, like where should we be looking in this document?
On conflict resolution between board members, I don't see anything
Page-
in there.
Page number?
There's nothing in there.
Oh,
Okay.
Which page number to go to?
okay. Thank you, David.
That's the problem.
It's a section that's missing. And I think it's important that we have because there are going to be some times that there's going to be some conflict between board members. And I think we should have how we handle that. I don't know where to put that in there, but I think it's an important part. And I've been looking at other governance from other districts, and they do have conflict resolution procedures for governance teams. Okay. So, and I think, I mean, I know I sent some notes on that, and I don't know what sections that should go in, but I think we should have something in there. If we have a dispute or disagreement, things, if it gets heated in the moment, because we're very passionate people of what we do, there are things that we should have intervention, and usually the president should intervene and call a short recess, things like that. So, we should, if there's something in there, I missed it.
I think there is.
Yeah, I want to jump in here. I mean, I've been coming to these board meetings for over 18 years now. I can tell you there's like no need for any kind of conflict resolution. I mean, we're having a simple board meeting and, the worst thing that can happen is like, we start yelling at each other and the president gavels it down and says we take a 5-minute recess. And that's just regular rules of order and how you handle a meeting.
And that's fine, but you don't know what the future has in store. But I've looked at other boards' governance, and I think it's something that we should have in there for future. If this is going to be used as a guidance instructions for new board members, I just think it's important that we at least consider it of how to handle that. So I'm just going back to what I've seen in other governance handbooks and been reading. That if you guys don't feel like it's necessary, that's fine.
No, I can
But-
weigh in, David, but I want to, Ryan looks like he wants to talk.
Well, yeah, I do agree in putting an item on that in there, only because, number one, this is designed to be the handbook for a new board member, right? And so, and number two, this is designed to set governance norms. So we're kind of like setting our general expectations for how we're going to work together. And not everybody knows how to effectively communicate or effectively talk things out or whatever it might be. And it's just to put a little section or a bullet point or whatever, just to say, hey, if you're getting ticked off here, these are the possible solutions for that.
I thought it, as, yeah. And, I look at our board here. I've been coming to board meetings here for, like I said, 18 years. And as our previous superintendent used to say, we are the gold standard for school boards. And I'm used to seeing that. And then as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about, I've heard of some of those boards that have degenerated into chaos and everything. And I'm glad that's not us, but okay. We need rules in case they're going to be chaotic people down the road, in case chaotic people get elected here.
Yeah, and maybe not just rules, but again, these are norms, right?
Yeah,
So this is
exactly.
These are the things that we say, hey, look, if it's getting heated, these are the different solutions.
I get it. I get it. I'm going along, okay?
We do not have procedures for resolving conflicts. We do have the norms on page 10. During the board meeting, number 1, we will keep our focus on the best interests of our students. We will communicate openly and honestly with each other. We will build upon the ideas of others and look for common ground. We will paraphrase for understanding. When we have a difference of opinion, we will debate the facts of the situation and avoid personalities. All team members will offer their ideas and resources. We will work toward the future, learning from the past. We will respect differences, show respect, and never dismiss or devalue others. Each board member will cast a vote on all matters, but may abstain when a conflict of interest arises. In the event a board member abstains, the nature of the conflict should be stated, and keep confidential matters confidential. But I think that touches upon what you're getting at, although it may lack like tips or strategies for how you resolve conflict.
I think we should put some of those tips or strategies or recommendations in there.
In that section, I think.
And which will be fine for me, because it is board meeting norms.
Yeah, it says, I can read some of the ones that I read. Edict disagreements don't belong in public meetings. If tension rises during a meeting, the board president has authority to call a short recess to reset the discussions. We should always model professionalism and respect, and not just for each other, but for the community watching. That was from one of the guidance that I looked at, governance, that they had this statement in there.
We won't use the Senate confirmation hearings as our example.
No, but I mean, throwing something in there is fine, doing that. I mean, that's already what we would do anyway, so just putting
Well,
it in there.
David, can you and John work on that at another time, putting some language in?
I'll send them this statement, and that way.
Yeah, happy to incorporate some of those statements into the handbook in the appropriate section and bring it back to the board
And I agree. We're pretty much in alignment, and if but we're independent of our thoughts, and we've at times not agreed on certain things, but that's fine. That's how you get constructive production done, or now I'm talking production. Constructive criticism is sometimes very valuable in getting your thoughts out. But I just want to make sure that we do have some resolution that can redirect or facilitate, just in case the conversation goes into a lengthy discussion like I am now.
Thank you, David. That was very clear, though. I appreciate that. Unless anybody else has anything, I wanted to bring up something on page 11 to clarify. The first one, in accordance with the Brown Act, board members will not send or receive electronic communication during board meetings on matters that are being heard, considered, deliberated. I think that's meant between themselves, right? That other people are.
And with other people. Because you're at a public meeting, all communication is to be publicly aired. If you're corresponding with a member of the public privately during an open session of a board meeting, that's a violation of the Brown Act.
Can you add the section in the Brown Act that we can find that in? I believe it's there. I just wanted to just have a specific.
And that does say it's on matters that are being heard, considered, deliberated. So if I get a text message from my kid, I can actually go and say, hit that without violating the Brown Act.
Okay. Right. That works. Then in
Bring
section.
milk home on the way. Yeah, something like that.
Or my wife, stop talking. Item number 2 there, pulling an item from consent calendar. The consent calendar enables the board to handle routine matters with minimal discussion, allowing them to concentrate on their primary goal, improving student achievement. I feel like saying a routine matter, I honestly don't believe there's any routine matters per se, so I'd kind of like to come up with a different couple words there for the consent calendar. I actually don't have words of what I'm thinking, but like everything we do really matters, and so maybe Dr. Good or someone who, or Brian. But I really would like to use different words than routine matters, because there's always something that regularly occurring.
Routine doesn't mean unimportant.
You know, what's interesting about that, Amanda, is that is a really good, I'm running out of words, so we're good here. But there's the word that talks about language, but yes, I do view routine as not important. So you bring up a good point that I view saying routine. So regularly reoccurring, I like better, but anybody else has?
All regularly reoccurring things that are on the consent calendar can vary greatly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not just regular recurring items. It could just be, we had to do a purchase of something that's a small thing. There are many things.
Having to make a small purchase is a regularly recurring thing, but the type of purchase will be different every time. But needing to purchase some tool in order to enable us to do our jobs, and we need to piggyback on a contract with another district, each piggyback will be different, but it's normal in the course of business to have to acquire certain tools. So rather than have the board spend precious time at a meeting when there are more important things to be discussing at length, we just approve them all with one vote.
Instead of routine.
That doesn't mean they're being hidden. They're posted. It's for the public to see. Everything is there for the public to look at and for board members to read about. And what this talks about is a board member can choose to pull something from the consent calendar if they would rather have the board discuss it separately.
Yeah. Okay, well, I brought up my thoughts. David, any thoughts from you?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So then that was page 11. Then I had something on page, did anybody have anything on 11 or 12? I have something on 13.
I've got just kind of like a general question in the section here. So, I guess the whole section, starting on page 10.
Okay.
So, in a few cases, the star, or the asterisk denotes CSBA standards, right? At a certain point, we said, hey, let's make sure if something is law, let's put a reference to that law. Did we, is there any of that needs to be referenced in a sense? And I'm not looking for,
Usually the references within the content of the sentence itself, such as the references to Brown Act. If we say board members will not interact with one another on social media on matters concerning school district business, because the Brown Act prohibits that. And we usually just reference which provision of the law governs that.
Okay.
yeah, I would just suggest if there are anything, or is anything in here that is related to a specific law.
Okay.
That we should know about, it'd be nice to kind of have that
How about
asterisk
ed
or link or
code?
footnote or something.
Okay.
Ed code or something, also.
Most of these are just the routines and practices we establish in our interactions with one another and how we're going to do business. They aren't necessarily set by any law. There's only a few things in here that are set by law, and usually it's Brown Act things.
Yeah, and that,
I remember writing this up before about having footnotes denoting that. So I agree.
From my perspective, I just see this as, again, this is all the things that I wish I would have known 2 years ago. And if there's certain things that are law or culture or wherever those things fit, that would have been helpful for me to understand or make it stick a little bit better.
Yeah, because I know when it comes to law, like certain things I want to push back on if it's policy, but if it's law, well, I will push back on those too. However, I understand that you can be less pushback.
That's a different spot to push back.
So, Ryan, did you need John to add anything in any of these sections that relates to law?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just a
I can
quick
review and
review
make
to
sure,
see.
review and make sure that there aren't any legal items that aren't referenced.
And are we going to just put those as footnotes or asterisks?
Well, the ones that exist are actually cited in the text itself, according to the Brown Act. So I'll just make sure there is a reference if there is anything in here that's required by Ed Code or federal law.
I did look up.
I'm looking at
Go ahead.
page 8 and 9. There's a bunch of asterisks beside it.
Yeah, the first ones are pretty heavily governance norms established by CSBA. So we put an asterisk because they are CSBA standards, which we've all learned, and referencing where they came from.
I look forward to getting elected to being a member of the CSBA and making some changes. Thank you, Delegate Assembly. All right, I had something.
Probably a good chance that this board will vote for you.
Thank you, Bill. There's 3 people from Vista running, but this is not an agenda item, so I have to keep my mouth shut. All right.
I do have a question in terms of sections again. So a lot of these are protocols. My question kind of goes back to the law side of things, again, as from a handbook standpoint. I should know the answer to this, but what is